1779, the American Revolution had become a stalemate. The British were unable to destroy Washington's army, isolate New England, or convince the rebels to give up the struggle. They had lost an army at Saratoga and evacuated Philadelphia. They determined they would hold their position in New York and shift their efforts to the south. The British commanders determined a new strategy was necessary if they were going to re-establish control of their American colonies. Their intelligence told them they had a very good chance of success in the south, where the number of loyalists was greater. They hoped to achieve success in the south and use that success to move northward and regain control of the whole of the colonies. The British took Savannah, Georgia in 1778 with little resistance. Charlestown, South Carolina, fell to the British forces in 1780, as did Camden. The Battle of Camden was a complete military disaster for the insurgent patriots, as General Horatio Gates of Saratoga fame was routed. At Waxhaw, South Carolina, British General Banastre Tarleton attacked an American force of approximately 350. Despite their efforts to surrender, the American men were butchered to death by Tarleton and his dragoons, leading the Patriots to give him the nickname of Bloody Ban, or the Butcher. Tarleton had been an important participant in the battles of Charleston and Camden, and in January 1781 he was ordered to pursue Brigadier General Daniel Morgan's troops. They met up in a place known as Cowpens, South Carolina. Morgan was a tough commander who was beloved by his men. He had fought in the French and Indian War, where he was shot through the neck and cheek, leaving a huge disfiguring scar on one side of his face. He also had an incident in which he assaulted a British officer, an offense for which he was given 500 lashes on his back, leaving his back a mass of scar tissue and causing him to walk with a bit of a limp. Had he remained in the British Army, Morgan would never have been more than an infantryman, but he proved to be an invaluable leader for the Continental Army. Morgan demonstrated those unsurpassed leadership skills during the Battle of Cowpens. Morgan deployed his men along the main road in Cowpens in 3 lines, using the undulating topography to conceal each successive line from the onrushing dragoons. He placed sharpshooters in the first line, hiding behind trees. The second line was a line of militia. Morgan knew not to ask too much from these unseasoned troops. Therefore, he told them all they had to do was fire 2 volleys before dropping back to regroup with the Continentals, who were in the third line. The third line consisted of professional Continental infantry with a cavalry unit under the command of William Washington, hidden in the trees off to the side of the battlefield. Morgan understood Tarleton well. He calculated that Tarleton would attempt a full frontal assault, and he was absolutely correct. As Tarleton and his men charged forward, the first line of sharpshooters took aim and fired, primarily at British officers. Most accounts of the battle put the number of British killed by the front line at 15. Tarleton's men regrouped and continued forward toward Morgan's second line. The second line did as they were asked, firing 2 volleys into the charging British lines, then falling back to the third line of Continentals. As the second line retreated, Tarleton's dragoons charged, believing Morgan's army was in full retreat. Tarleton's men could not see the third line assembled in a small swale, waiting for the oncoming British troops. As Tarleton's men charged with excitement, chasing the retreating second line, they became disorganized and less disciplined. As they approached the third line, they were overwhelmed by Washington's cavalry, and the British dragoons were driven from the battlefield. The British infantry began to advance at a trot. Tarleton's 71st Highlanders joined the fray, charging onto the battlefield with bagpipes playing. In all of the confusion, an order to the Patriot forces to face right to protect their flank was misunderstood, leading the men to retreat instead. The third line appeared momentarily to be leaving the battlefield. Morgan spurred his horse and circled back to order the retreating men to turn about face and fire in unison. The British, who had broken ranks anticipating a rout of the Patriot enemy, were completely surprised and suffered heavy losses when the Patriots turned about. This was followed by a Patriot bayonet charge and a regrouping of the Patriot cavalry and infantry that caught the British troops in the middle. Redcoats began to surrender en masse, and Tarleton took those who remained and fled the battlefield. There were cries of "Remember Waxhaws" by some of Morgan's men, but Morgan offered the British full quarter and would not allow any vengeful actions on the part of his troops. The Battle of Cowpens was a significant and important victory for the Patriot cause. It is considered the battle that turned the tide of the war and established the path toward Cornwallis's surrender at Yorktown. There are many lessons we can take from the Battle of Cowpens. First, there's Daniel Morgan, a man who was a commoner in England and who, therefore, would have never become an officer in the British Army. In the newly emerging America, Morgan was judged on his merit, not his social status. He demonstrated the ability to lead on a battlefield. Therefore, he was afforded that opportunity. The militia in the second line may be seen in a similar light. They were common men, largely untrained in the art of warfare, who demonstrated great courage and confidence in the face of the enemy. They believed in themselves and their leadership, and they established a goal that was meaningful and attainable. They achieved their goal through teamwork and trust. The third line in the battle made a mistake when they started to retreat, but Morgan rallied them to turn about and fire, thus changing the outcome of the battle. By staying focused and working together, they were able to overcome their mistake and turn it into success. In many ways, the Battle of Cowpens is a microcosm of American values. I'm sure through greater analysis you will find many more lessons that exemplify the great country we all enjoy today. One thing seems certain. The Battle of Cowpens was a major turning point in the war that eventually ended in the creation of the United States of America, the country that continues to offer opportunity to those who choose to reach for it.